Welcome to the MasterMined Club, your ultimate gateway into the world of Bitcoin mining. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale your operations, our vibrant community of like-minded enthusiasts is here to support you every step of the way. Join us for weekly sessions led by industry pros, where you'll exchange ideas, brainstorm strategies, and stay motivated on your mining journey. From heat management to site optimization, our monthly deep dives cover the technical know-how you need to succeed. And with access to our entire back catalog, you'll never miss a beat. But that's not all. Our members enjoy exclusive one-on-one sessions with veteran miners, plus direct access to special pre-sales and insider opportunities at Bitcoin Mining World. Ready to take your mining to the next level? Join the MasterMined Club today and secure your spot in the future of Bitcoin mining. Visit bitcoinminingworld.com or scan the QR code now. And now back to the show.
All right. Good morning. Welcome, Phil, to our Mastermind Deep Dive session for Friday, November 15th. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me, Trevor.
Yeah, we're excited to dive deep into building different types of data centers and Bitcoin mining facilities. A lot of our members are, aspiring Bitcoin miners, or they're currently Bitcoin miners and they want to scale up their operations. So this is a perfect deep dive to kind of explain how you go about developing and building and setting yourself up right for the future.
Perfect. I'm excited to present what I got, and I look forward to some questions.
For sure. So real quick for everybody, the project of Phil is the VP of Business Development for MBA Energy and Industrial. We're going to kind of be going over the project scope and responsibility, defining the project scope, client and contractor roles, cost estimation and budget management, and a lot more will be kind of discussed in this conversation today. If you guys have any questions, please post those in the chat and we will get to those questions at the end of this video. But before we do this, our resident media guy, John Taylor, he's the head of our media department. He does all the videos for us and really does a great job. He's going to come on and he's got something to tell you guys about. Take it away, John.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Taylor, and I'm over here at Bitcoin Mining World. And we are so happy to partner with the W3 Certification Board, and they are doing with us a Bitcoin mining boot camp in Dallas, Texas. It's an in-person event. It's 4 days long. So this is really if you are looking to start a mine or if you want to get into the mining business. This is a hands-on 5-day in-person training. So it's hybrid. Some of the prerequisites you're going to do beforehand online. And then you're going to be in person for the 2-day training on the 16th and the 17th in Dallas at the Dallas College. All of the hours that you put into this go towards your Bitcoin mining certification, which will be coming out in 2025. And it's just a great opportunity to learn more and to optimize and build better. As a bonus, you are going to get your very own S19, J, or Pro that you can take home, take apart, and do all kinds of fun things with. You also get the Bitcoin mining handbook and headphones so that you don't have to hear that miner as it is whirling up. So there's a QR code there. You can also go to bitcoinminingworld.com and get more information, or feel free to reach out to anybody on the team. We'll help answer any questions that you have. And if you're in Dallas next week for the North American Blockchain Council Convention at the George W. Bush Presidential Library, be sure to come see us. We'll be hanging out and we are going to go for barbecue one night. It's tradition. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate that. Guys, like John said, check that out. You do get a free miner with that service and your certification, some headphones, and a cool book. So it's something that I definitely want to take advantage of, and you should too. All right, guys, without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Phil, and we're going to get started learning about how to build data mining centers, Bitcoin mining centers, and construction costs, all that good stuff. Take it away, Phil.
All right. Appreciate it. Let me share this. All right, you good, Trevor?
I'm good, man.
See it? All right. So as Trevor said, VP of Sales for MBA Energy Industrial. I've been doing construction for about 30 years. Been able to do it kind of from the beginning as a grunt, working all the way up through running HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies, production for MBA, as well as estimating, and now into sales. So I've had a chance to kind of touch all the aspects of construction. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share some of my experiences. I'm getting old and gray in the beard and the hair and everywhere else. But hopefully this is something that is valuable for y'all. Before I dive into this content, though, I hope it's okay. I'm going to share a short story. I know your time's valuable, but why I'm sharing a picture of my son playing baseball. Although he's 11 years old, last fall was the first time he'd ever played baseball. We were a swimming family. He did a lot of swimming, and this was his first time he decided he wanted to play. He's an amazing kid, but he is incredibly small for his age. So when he showed up for his first practice, you can imagine my shock when he told the coach, "Hey, I want to be a catcher." As most of you know, the catcher is usually one of the biggest, strongest kids. However, what my son is fearless. Fast forward to 1 year later, after hours of practice with teams, private lessons, working on his own in the backyard, he played for his third championship in a row with his third different team last night, and they won. Not only has he focused on his fundamental skills, he also has worked hard on his drip. Last fall, his team, was also the Orioles, he was a Joe Burrows fan. So one Sunday morning, I woke up to him in the kitchen painting his brand new blue baseball helmet orange. My gut reaction was anger, but I have learned he is who he is. So I just bit my tongue and rolled with it. In the end, it turned out great. He ended up using over 2 rolls of blue tape to do it, but it turned out great. Right before this season started, I came home from a work trip. My wife just said to me, "Don't go in the garage." So I immediately went to the garage. There again, he had painted his shin guards yellow. Again, blood seeped from my tongue, but he really did a good job. He was careful not to get the straps or the fabric painted, and I asked him why he had done that. He said, so the scouts could see him better. Now, I don't know what scout is at a U13 City Little League fall baseball game, but okay. In the end, it was actually great for the grandparents watching on the stream, though, because it was easy to distinguish when he was catching versus anyone else. No one else has the yellow shin guards. His final addition midway through the season was his shoes. Once white, are now covered in drawings. He has actually had a couple of different sets of parents ask if he'd be willing to do something for their kids next season. So maybe he can start making some money and pay back some of the fees for baseball. But what does this have to do with anything? No matter what you're building or for what, there are no cheat codes. You must put in the due diligence, the work to ensure you get what you need and what you want. But if you have the right team helping you, you can take your creative freedoms and excel quickly. And just because other people do it one way doesn't mean it's the only way. Be open to thinking outside the box, and I hope to put you on that path today. So today we're going to just go over real quick the project scope and responsibilities, the cost estimation and budget management, different styles of mining facilities, and Bitcoin mining cooling styles. Obviously, there's going to be people that you'll have various similar calls with that are way more into the details of the cooling. But I do have a background in HVAC and can at least give you a kind of a rough overview and how that affects what kind of building you do and what kind of costs will be involved. And at the end, hopefully you'll have the information you need to have ready to go when you want to come talk to someone like me and you're ready to try and build your next facility or your first facility. So as a design build industrial construction firm, MBA has the capacity to take your project from a raw piece of land or a current building if you're doing a remodel and nothing more than a napkin drawing and take it all the way to a completed facility. However, how much you want someone like MBA to do is up to you and your team's capabilities. The typical demarcation point is from the transformer to the PDU. Generally, your utility company is going to get you up to the transformer, and once you get to that PDU, you or your team are generally taking it over from there. So there's 3 different ways, 3 different main methods of how a project is done. The first is full turnkey. And how the GC looks at this is, if needed, MBA could take your requirements, your land, your building, design the whole facility. We'll do all the surveys, the geotech reports, the environmental confirmations to prepare for permit applications for building and for operation. We can figure out the optimal building options, HVAC options, power requirements, and then help find the subcontractors, get everything built and inspected and turned over to you for the final product, ready for your miners. This model relies on a design and construction firm very heavily. Over half of our work across all industries is this type of work. Our in-house design team takes the napkin drawings or list of specifications, needs, and wants and turns it into a 50% drawing package for you to review and mark up. And from there, we start filling in the gaps, work on the permits, and do the due diligence if not completed already. After a few more reviews, you're ready to have an IFC package and get going on construction. So once you, in this role, we're doing a lot. Your GC, your general contractor, is doing a lot of that work. And they're going to do everything from the dirt to handing you the keys, and you're just going to get in, work on your miners, get your racks going, and do startup. The next style is called a hybrid, and it's kind of a mix of both. Some owners have a good idea what they want before they even meet with us, and to save a little bit of money, they're purchasing some of the items themselves. All they want is for us to integrate those that they're purchasing in with the final product. This is a good way to go if you know what you're doing or you have experience in construction or in building data centers. You can save some markup on a few items. However, it requires a lot more of your time and involvement. And we're currently working on a 300 megawatt site where the client is much more involved in every aspect. They had a good relationship with a civil contractor, so they direct hired them to do the site, underground utilities, the foundations. However, they did not have a design firm. So MBA designed the site and the buildings. For this project, our responsibilities were the design, the permits, the shell, the HVAC filtration, and architectural finishes. Everything else was done by the client. The third way is build to print. So another way of doing this is, if you as the client hire an independent design firm and design everything completely. So at the end, you have drawings ready to go build, and all we're doing is taking your drawings and building it. We're currently working on a 650 megawatt site where our client did exactly that. And our responsibilities were just to come in and do the work. We did the site work, the underground utilities, foundations, the shell, set the units, filtration, all those kind of things. The client was responsible because they had done the full design. They were responsible for the design, the permits. They purchased the HVAC equipment and the miner racks and some of those kind of things. So those three different ways, it depends on who you are, what your experience is, and what makes the most sense for you. But all three can work with you to figure out your next steps. So, but how much is that going to cost? All of you, when you want to figure out, as Trevor was saying, whether you have a small facility you want to scale up, or you're just doing from home and you want to start your first facility, the big thing is you got to figure out how much money it's going to cost. How much money do you need to go to get capital, get a loan, make sure that it'll pencil out, what your ROIs will be, and all those kind of things. So when you're doing that, some of the biggest cost drivers and things you need to figure out and understand before you can really finalize that budget. The first one is your land or the existing facility if you're doing a remodel. Based on where it is, it can be this can be a major cost or a minor cost. But the location and where it's at matters a lot. You need to take in a lot of other things we're about to talk about, but also, how close are you going to have employees to come work if you're doing a little bit of a larger facility? How far away are you from some of those kind of things? The next is your electrical infrastructure. This depends on the size of your facility. If you're just trying to scale up to doing a 1 to 5 megawatt facility, the utility cost, the electrical infrastructure probably is not a big deal. You can probably pull right from the transformers or substations that are there. As you start getting into the 50, 100, 200, 500 megawatt locations, that's when you really have to work with the local utilities on the infrastructure. You're probably having to have substations built on your facility. You're looking at transformers that are going to have up to 18 to 24 months of lead time, generators to keep things going. And then especially if you're also looking to maybe try and do some cloud storage or any kind of the HPC stuff that's becoming a trend with some of the larger miners as well, where your upkeep time has to be, 99.7, 99.8, you definitely have to have that look at those generators or second electrical options. The next one is your other utilities. So how much will it cost you to tie into the electrical grid? How much is it to get fiber and or even redundant fiber to your site? If you're going to do a bigger site and you're going to have an office or some kind of an employee area, you'll have plumbing and sewer that may be required. Depending on where you're building, stormwater management might be necessary. So all those things come into play. The next one is surveys. Topo, environmental, geotech, phase 1 and 2. So this is probably something that may be a little less familiar to a lot of you who haven't done a lot of construction. So I'll kind of go through what these are real fast. The survey is basically where your land is and making sure that you're looking to build where you actually own the property that you think you own. It verifies the points, verifies your edges, and make sure that there's nothing crazy or that there's nothing wrong. A fence is on the wrong side or something that's been done before. The topo is a topographical map. That's going over your elevation. This is actually very, very important. In some places where it's really flat, it's not as big a deal. But in other areas, it can be very, very important because you need to build on a flat surface. And so if it's going to cost a lot of money to either bring dirt in or take dirt out to make that flat surface, you need to make sure you're budgeting for that. The cost of mass earth movement can become very expensive. Environmental, you need to know, are you in a environmental area, a wetlands area? Has there been oil spills? Have there been chemical issues? Have there been tires stored on site? All those kind of things. And then a geotech report. What that does is that does a bore down into the earth and figures out what the earth below your surface is made of. And if it's sandy, if it's clay, if it's loam, what's down there. And so the big thing is you need to figure out, am I going to be able to build right where I'm at? Do I have to bring in 1 or 2 foot of fill dirt? Or are there giant rocks and boulders down not very deep into the ground that I'm going to run into that I'm going to have to grind or blast away if I want to try and build here? And all of that stuff can become very expensive. So these are things that are very important to do early on before you commit too much money to the site. And then finally, a phase 1, phase 2, those oftentimes are hopefully done when you're looking to buy the land. And what those are doing are confirming that there's no liens against the property, that there's no right-of-ways that would make it so that you can't build on that property. I was looking at buying a property for my wife's swim school a few years ago. And thankfully, I had done the phase 1 and found out that basically there was a bunch of really old oil and gas lines running all over underneath this property. And when I tried to get them released because no one was using them anymore, I found out that the owner was just looking to get a bunch of money. They had bought all these rights just to try and hold hostage until someone tried to build on the land. So that you would have never known it by looking at the site that was happening. But that's why you have to do these due diligence items before construction begins. The next one is permits. Again, this is one where it depends on where you're at. If you're out in the county in Texas, there's very little. If you're in the city of Houston or Dallas or New York or anywhere in California, then the permits become much more intrusive and can really slow down how long it takes you to get up and running and get your ROI back. So you definitely want to find someone like MBA or whoever your contractor is who understands the area and understands what permits are needed, because these can not only be costly, but they can also be extremely preventative for you to moving forward. So make sure you understand all the permits that are necessary for whatever location you're trying to build. And then next is your foundation and building shell. So again, depending on if you're up in the north, you're going to have a bigger foundation with frost walls than you would down in the south. And then your shell is, we're going to go through different ways of building and different building types. but that's what that is called, your building shell. But basically just the outside of your building, none of the interior build out stuff. The next one is your HVAC and your filtration. Obviously, as a mining center, this is vital for your operation. There's some rules of thumb as far as temperatures and how much filtration and how clean you have to keep things. But it's always up to each individual person, the equipment you're buying, and the risk tolerances you're trying to avoid or willing to accept in order to save costs here or save costs there. So figuring out how you want to do that is also extremely vital. Again, we're going to go into that a little more detail later on. And the final one on the slide is the electrical to install and connect everything. So you have all your costs from the PDU on to finish, but also just that basic electrical to bring in from the transformer into the building, into your panels, give you convenience lights, convenience outlets, and those kind of things. So let's talk about budget control methods. How do you put this budget together? Because obviously, if you're here today, you probably haven't done a lot of construction and have no idea if this is a $1, $50 or $1 million widget that you're looking at. So one thing you'll sometimes hear is what's called a FEED study. That stands for Front End Engineering Design. This is valuable when you know what you want and are willing to pay to get the design completed, so you can send it out to get bids from contractors to figure out exactly what the cost of construction will be before you even start building or buying anything. This may be required if you're trying to get a financing or board approval for a large project. The downside, obviously, is you have to spend sometimes some significant capital up front for a project that may or may not happen. Typically, a FEED study you're going to see for large, multi 500 million or more billion, those kind of facilities. For what we're talking about today, a FEED study most likely is not necessary and is above and beyond what you need. For what we're looking at today, you should be able to get a design build budget from a contractor similar to MBA. And what we do is we build a free budget bid for you based on your specs, napkin drawing, having a rough idea of what you want, how the direction you want to go for HVAC, the utility options, some of that kind of stuff. Generally within 2 to 3 weeks of meeting with you and kind of going through what you want, we should be able to give you a budget that's probably within 20 to 30% of what that final number will be. From there, you'll know pretty close what that widget is. It's either $1 million or 1.3 or maybe 700,000, but you have to get the money to be roughly in that area and not 10 million or 100 million. So the two main contract types, there's obviously a million different kind of contracts, but the two main ones that you'll generally see for this type of construction is a fixed price and a cost plus. The advantage of a fixed price contract is you have a pretty firm number of what your costs are going to be for budgeting and approval purchases. If costs go up, you're protected because you have a fixed price as long as the contractor is willing to honor the contract. But if costs go down, the contractor benefits, but not the owner. However, on the flip side, for a cost plus job, if costs go down, then you benefit as the owner. However, if costs go up, you as the owner are on the hook. So it mostly comes down to your risk mitigation for your risk acceptance and how you want to handle things. We're doing both a fixed price and a cost plus mining facility right now. A cost plus may cost just a little bit more depending on how you want to handle things, but it does allow you to move faster and get done sooner, so as you don't have to wait for the full design before you can go to a fixed price contract. And so it kind of just depends on the speed that you're trying to operate and how you want to handle things. But no matter which way you go, no matter what budget you use, no matter what contract you go to, I want you to make sure you really pay attention to this next three letters, the SOV, Schedule of Values. This has to be your Bible for construction. This is basically what the costs are broken down by division, broken down by the HVAC, the concrete, the electrical, the building cost, the filtration, and through each of the kind of main trades. You'll require this at bid time. You should require this by your GC at contract time. And then every month when they do their draws, you'll want to verify. It makes it a lot easier to see if they're trying to bill you for a lot more than what has actually been done. The important part, the reason that is important is you want to make sure you keep your GC and then they keep their subcontractors in line so that you're not paying for anything you don't have yet. Because if they get too far ahead of you and something happens, someone walks off, someone is unsafe and you want to fire them, whatever it is, if they're ahead of you in money, that means that cost to finish the job is going to be extra cost out of your pocket. Whereas if you keep them honest to their schedule of values, you should have the money still in the bank to be able to hire someone else to finish what is left to do. So again, this is vital to do. I do not ever do a construction project without this. And then we're going to get into the next point, and it'll come back to this. But you will want to know and live that schedule values throughout the construction process. And the final is liens, waivers, and rights. And it's very important you understand what this is. Everyone who comes on site and works on your job site can pull a mechanical lien against your property and against your facility and everything until it gets cleared or they get paid. And so this is basically the contractor's leverage over you to make sure he gets paid for the work you do. But also you need, as the owner, need to make sure they're paying their bills when you pay them. And so as the contractor, you make sure your general contractor is giving you conditional and unconditional waivers every month. And then they're requiring it of their subcontractors, and their subcontractors requiring it of their vendors. With every pay app, you should be getting a list of all of the people who have had worked on or had vendors that have got material there with their conditional waivers based on you paying them for that month, and then the unconditional waivers from the month before. If it ever gets where you're not getting this, stop paying them until they get that. Because if you, again, let's say you've been paying your subcontractor, paid them all the bills. Well, let's say they're not paying Ferguson. Ferguson is a ginormous plumbing wholesale company. And if after you go 30 days, they're going to send it out. They have teams of people whose only job is sending out lien waivers, basically. And if you are wanting to close out your job, let's say you want to get your final loan approval and stuff, they're going to require lien waivers. And if there's a lien against your site, they're going to make you clear it up before you can move forward, which means you're going to pay for that plumbing stuff twice. You're going to pay for it to the GC and the sub, and then you're going to pay it again directly to the vendor. So it's, again, vital that you protect yourself and take care of those SOVs and those liens. And if you have questions on that, obviously talk to your attorneys. Feel free to reach out anytime. Been dealing with a lot of those over the years, so happy to give you my 2 cents if you have questions. All right, let's go into the different kinds of construction that we're seeing right now of mining facilities. The simplest and what a lot of people are starting with when they're first getting into more commercial grade, commercial level mining is containerized. The advantages are they can easily be transported to different locations. So if someone's done with them, maybe doing something else, you can take them and move them to your spot. You can move them if there's a lower energy availability somewhere, or the climate is better, if it's cooler or something. They're also great for remote locations because you don't have to really find a lot of local labor to put things together. They're generally cheaper to set up compared to traditional data centers or new construction. They're scalable. You can add more as you need it. Their energy efficiency is generally pretty good because they're not, you don't have a lot of extra space. Everything that you need is very tight inside. And so you're only treating a very limited amount of space. And then speed, because a lot of this is standardized and done off site. For the time you get to site to operating can be reduced significantly. We have a number of folks that are getting these from fabricators in the US, but there's a lot coming overseas from Asia as well, especially as some of these countries have shut down mining operations or made it illegal to have mining going in Eastern Europe and in Asia. And so they're taking what they were using and trying to ship them over here and find people who want to operate them here in the US. Disadvantages, although they are small, which helps with the efficiency, they're also limited in space. So the physical constraints of the container can limit how much mining rigs you can have housed within. The containers because they are just smaller containers, they're hard to maintain because there's not a lot of room to move around in them. and they may have insulation issues just because of the how they're constructed. Security concerns, they may not provide the same level of security as a purpose-built data center. Heat issues, we have run into this a lot over the last couple of years. Many of the operators are finding that they're struggling controlling their, basically, because there's not a hot aisle. The hot aisle is ejected on one end, and the fresh air is coming in on the other. Even with hoods to put it down or up or distance, depending on the wind direction and how hard it's blowing, it can affect the miners down the line. So you could be losing efficiencies the farther down the line you get. And then finally is flexibility. Again, because they're generally custom built, when the new models come out, if you're trying to change things out, sometimes you can't reuse the containers you have because they were so specific for the original application you had. For a new building, obviously there are some advantages. You can design it specifically for what you want. It can be designed specifically for Bitcoin mining. You can optimize your space. You don't have to make it any bigger than you need it to be. The cooling, the energy efficiency can be much higher because the purpose-built facilities can incorporate the latest technology, designs, maximize the efficiency and performance. It's a long-term investment. You get a new building, you're getting a new long-term asset. So it provides a stable and secure environment for mining operations and expandability. Unlike if you bought a remodel or a new existing building to remodel, you can keep building new buildings to be expandable upon the need and growth. So let's say you only want to do 5. So these buildings here are 20 megawatt lengths, basically 4 or 5 megawatt sections put together. Let's say you only wanted to build 5 megawatts to start. You could do that and then have it designed ready to go so that when you're ready to add another 5, 10, 15 megawatts, you can just add on and make that happen. Disadvantages, there is a high initial cost. These cost money. So building a new facility requires significant capital investment, which can be a barrier for some miners. Longer setup time. The construction process, especially depending on where you're doing it, can take a considerable amount of time, which could delay the start of your operations. Having an in-house design team or working with someone like MBA to mitigate some of this risk can generally help bring that lead time back down, but it is something to consider. And then same with regulatory approvals. Sometimes the necessary permits, the approvals, some of the kickback we're seeing from local authorities can sometimes be time consuming and complex. So again, you want to use someone like MBA or a contractor who knows what they're doing to help you get through those stumbling blocks so you don't have to try and figure it out on your own. All right, so some of the major new construction that we're seeing a lot of for your size of mining facilities. This isn't the hyperscaler. This is more of like what you're seeing on this picture. So we pre-engineered metal, PEMBs, that stands for pre-engineered metal building, also known as MBS, which is a metal building system. They're designed and engineered to meet the specific building codes and requirements for where you're building. PMBs are cost effective. They can be erected quickly. Because our specialty is remote work all around the country in the middle of nowhere. Over 80% of our work is pre-engineered metal buildings, as it best fits what makes the most sense for our customers' needs, but is not the only thing that we do. The other thing pictured here on the right side of this picture is fabric facilities. They can go up quickly. They're not as cheap as you think they would be, and although they can last for 5-10 years, they do have a relatively short shelf life compared to a traditional metal building, especially in harsh winter conditions. We've done a number of them up in North Dakota, done them out in West Texas. So in some of these harsher areas, they especially reduce how long they last. Now, as you start getting into the larger hyperscale, large buildings, sometimes you'll see what these pictures. So these are called tilt wall. And so they're used structural steel to build a facility, and then they're cladded with these tilt wall panels. So in construction, we're really, really creative. So basically you pour the wall on the ground, you tilt it up, and you have a tilt wall. It involves casting the concrete on the ground. Then you use a crane to bring it up, and then you can see all those metal supports running along. and those will stay until the entire building is up and the roof girts are all across, and then you can take those supports down once it's all self-supported. So the advantages are it's a cost-effective and efficient method of construction for large square foot, low-rise buildings. It gives a nice clean look and can reduce the air infiltration, which could be very important for mining and data center operations. The disadvantage is you need a lot of space around the building to work. You can see how much room you kind of have to be able to pour those and then bring them up. And they're great in large population areas like Dallas, where y'all are going next week. But when you're there, if you look everywhere along those highways, you'll see just tons and tons and tons of this type of building. It's not a great fit for remote construction in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, or in I guess Wisconsin. If you're outside the towns too far, they don't make a lot of sense, because once you get away from the batch plants, which is where you get the concrete, it can sometimes become very expensive to get concrete delivered to that location, and very difficult in large quantities. And in fact, the batch plant may not even be able to support the quantities you're looking for if it's a smaller batch plant kind of in the remote areas. So again, that's kind of where depending on where you are and what you're looking for will determine which kind of building style you would probably aim for. All right, let's talk about retrofits. There are advantages. The building's there already. So retrofitting an existing building or warehouse can be more cost effective than building a new facility. And since it's already there, your startup may be much, much quicker. And then potential for large scale operations. If you find a large warehouse, you can throw a lot of mining rigs in a large warehouse. This is probably one of the biggest advantages. If you're looking to get to, let's say you already have a 20 or a 50 megawatt and you're now looking to scale up and you want to try and do a 250 or 300, right now you're probably 2 to 3 years out by the time you found the land, made an agreement with a utility company, got a substation built, got the design done, got built, and you're in. Versus if you found an old warehouse that used to make, let's say, an old coal processing facility that obviously has been shut down, but they had 1.1 gigawatt worth of power because of all of the equipment they had running out there, and it's just sitting there. Well, all that utility, all that infrastructure is still in place. You basically already have all the power you need. All you just need to do is either retrofit a building that's there or even build a land on there, because the lead time has to do with power, not the building. The building can go up in a few months. So that's also another great option to look at. The problem is a lot of those existing facilities are not where the cheap power is. The power cost may be prohibitive to do something like this. So all of that comes into play. Disadvantages are the older buildings may not be as energy efficient, so you might have more operational costs, especially with your AC loads. Your unknown unknowns. You don't know what's under the foundation, behind the walls. No due diligence can find out everything, and you may not even know for years later, but it can be an extremely costly issue depending on what it is. So that's always one of the risks when you're reusing something. Cooling challenges, again, because of the size, there are restrictions around the building. You might not be able to do your optimal cooling solutions. You might be stuck doing one way or another. So this may hurt your ROI. And then regulatory zoning issues. Sometimes these existing facilities have regulations and zoning challenges that would make it hard for you to be able to just get your operation up and going. You'll have to get approvals and might have to get variances and those kind of things, which again can take time. All right. So Bitcoin cooling styles. So there's basically air cooled and immersion cooled. These are the two major types of cooling you're seeing. There's various little pieces of that, but I'm just going to touch on these quickly for more. This could be a 45-minute to an hour presentation just by itself. And I hope you actually attend one, because there's a lot of good knowledge there. But air-cooled facilities, they're for the data center, you're going to generally see a raised floor with air conditioning in it. to cool the mining equipment. It's generally simple to build and maintain, provides high density computer power. However, it's less energy efficient than the other approaches, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So there's the main pieces of air cooled is first that we see a lot in the Bitcoin mining world is just air volume changes. So all that is bringing whatever the air temperature is outside into your facility, running it through your miners out of hot aisle, either up and out or across and out, to create what's called the delta T. The delta T is the difference between the temperature outside and the temperature inside. And so let's say you have 80 degrees outside and you have 105 degrees in your hot aisle, and you bring that 80 in and you have a 15-degree delta, you're going to be able to, instead of having 105, you're going to be able to keep that air around 95 degrees because of that 80 degrees outside. However, if it's 90 degrees outside, you're going to be 105 on the inside. So part of figuring out if this way of cooling works for you depends on where you are, what the high and low temperatures are, what your equipment can handle. And always remember that engineers are always covering their butts. So when they say, hey, this equipment can only work from temperature X to temperature Y, you may want to get one and test it and see what you can really do to it, to see how high can you get before the degradation starts. Because if you do that and you say, oh, I have to have DX cooling, which is the next one we'll talk about, that's an extreme cost difference to maintain. And if you can actually get what you need to out without that, your ROI is going to be much, much better. So just kind of keep that in mind. So DX cooling is like most of us have in our houses or in our cars. It's a refrigerated cooling. So your air goes across a cool coil, picks that cool air up, and is blown into your house, your room, your car, wherever it is. So it's not just the air movement. One type of this is crack units. So those are computer room AC units. Those are what you would traditionally see in traditional data centers. But those are specifically made to handle the extreme kind of heat load and changes, and do a great job working with elevated flooring and false floors. So I just want to bring those up as a potential option. There's also water and geothermal with water to air. So instead of DX cooling, where your air is going across a refrigerated coil, your air goes across a heat exchanger that's being cooled by either water or by geothermal water. And again, it brings that temperature down, so the delta T goes down and then helps cool the facility. And the last one is a water curtain, similar to a swamp cooler or a water chiller. This is it's not the most effective, but especially in high humid areas. And I'm not a huge fan of introducing more water and humidity to electrical components. But in certain desert applications and in other places, this can be a cost-effective way of increasing that delta T to the level that you need. The cool kids, what they're doing now is the immersion cooled facilities. So what those are is the specialized liquid coolant that the coolant can absorb more heat than the air, which is why you're seeing a lot of the higher hyperscales and some of these things going to this. So it allows you to do higher density computing in smaller footprints. So meaning you have a much smaller cost to the building, to that initial capital, but these machines are also very expensive. They are very efficient, so that can reduce your overall maintenance costs. However, they are specialized equipment and maintenance. This part of this kind of cooling is still kind of on the front end. You'll see some that are direct chip immersion cooling, and then you'll see some like you here in this picture on the right, where it's more just the units are dropped in the either oil, water, whatever it is that you're using. So like some of the water to air cooling methods, these could require a lot of water for the chillers. So that also is another thing you just need to keep in mind. So we are almost done. All right. So what information do you need to have ready when you come to someone like me and you're ready to upscale, you're ready to start your first? first thing to know, where you're going to build. If we're building it in Texas, California, Virginia, Wisconsin, all of that, the pricing is completely different because of the subsource, the availability of things. So all of that needs to be taken into account. How big do you want? I need you to have a rough idea. Are you doing 1, 5, 10, 20, 100? What kind of megawatts are you looking to hit? And what kind of size you're needing to come? We need to have a rough idea there. And then we talked about power source being just vital. We really need to know with your local utilities, as well as if a redundant power source is needed. If you're looking to try and do some AI or cloud storage or any of those kind of things, are you going to be using natural gas generators, diesel generators? Are you looking at some kind of solar with battery storage for battery? So all those kind of different things. Again, water availability, depending on your cooling style, and mostly it comes down to your cooling style. Depending on your cooling style, this may be vital to what you're doing. So making sure that you have the water capacity for what you need. And then what kind of cooling style is going to work for the equipment you plan to bring in. Construction type, are you looking to do containers? Are you looking to do maybe a stick build or PMB fabric? Or are you trying to do a till water, that kind of thing? And then design type, are you looking for that turnkey, that hybrid, or that build to print that we talked about earlier in this presentation? And the last thing, the permitting requirements. You need to have a rough idea of what is it going to take, because part of it is the cost of the permit, how difficult they'll get, but again, the time, how long does it take to go to build? We are seeing places like Phoenix and in California where it can take 12 to 18 months before we can even start construction because of the permitting process. So all of that all plays into, am I in the right place and should I move forward? So just to kind of bring it all together again, bring it back to where we started, it's come to a close. I love this picture because it just shows how small my son is compared to those he competes against. The other catcher's in his crouch and is still taller than my son standing up batting, but does not stop him. If any of you are on the fence of getting started or taking your small operation, getting into something bigger, I hope after today you'll have the confidence to go get it done. To own something of your own, to see something built is one of the greatest feelings there is. And although you'll be nervous the whole time, there's just nothing more exciting. So that's the end of my main presentation. Again, happy to answer questions. If you still have any questions, my email is up there, as well as Brandon, who's our Bitcoin data center specialist. Here's his email. His Telegram is @bslater29. And hopefully we can help you get ready and become the next growth miner. I'll give it back to you, Trevor.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you, Phil, for all that information, man. Like, having conversations like this, having presentations like this from people like yourself who have been doing it for, a long time now, really helps our audience and myself especially understand what's needed and what's necessary in order to move forward. Real quickly, I just want to shout out, we have 217 people viewing live to this deep dive presentation. So that's a really great accomplishment.
Thanks for not telling me that until after the end.
Right.
As far as I knew,
a little nervous.
So
it was just great. Me. There you go. That's what we try to do. We try to keep you calm and collected. We don't want to bombard you with any of the minutia. But yeah, 217 people viewing live. So everybody who's viewing this live, we appreciate you for tuning in. We're going to start answering some questions now. So any of you who have any questions, whether you're on X or you're watching live from StreamYard or YouTube, go ahead and throw your questions in the chat and we will get to those. Our first question today is from Jordan or Jordine. What are you doing about the noise and how are you handling the community concerns on the noise?
All right. So for the most part, the vast majority of the ones we're building right now are in the middle of nowhere. So we're doing nothing for the noise. However, we do a number, because we don't just do this, we do a number of jobs that require a lot of what's called in construction, that noise is called sound attenuation. So that's when you start seeing that, that's what we would be looking at. So you have what's called an STC rating in construction, STC 45 of 52. What that is basically is how much that wall assembly is going to absorb of the sound. And then, so we built a compressor building right in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, right? So that's where the Boston Marathon, the starting line is in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. And it was in the middle of a bunch of really high-end communities that wanted no sound. So everything had to, you had 8 inches of wool insulation. And then you have chicken wire on the outside to kind of keep that in together. And then all the HVAC equipment has special sound attenuators. And all of that is just to keep that sound not just in, but absorbed. Because sound doesn't just disappear. It starts bouncing. If you have all hard surfaces, it will bounce around and just get worse. So you have to not just keep it in, you have to absorb it and get so that it disappears. So yeah, depending on where you are in the community, if that's a concern, all that you have to do is then you work on your wall thicknesses, your insulation pieces that will absorb that. And then for your HVAC equipment, that you have what's called sound attenuators. They're giant boxes basically that as the air is going through, the sound that's coming back from the equipment and from the building is bouncing through all of these baffles and getting absorbed so that when it goes outside, that sound has been dissipated.
Yeah, just finding ways to mitigate the sound in any way, shape, or form. It sounds like, you can do a lot of different things depending on the jurisdiction that you're in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Phil. All right. Our next question comes from Gordon Bear. Phil, have you considered hydro to hydro cooling to integrate into the construction for higher efficiency and more hash rate output per megawatt hour?
So again, that would definitely be something, an engineer or the guys who are doing the immersion cooling stuff would probably be able to answer better. I don't want to kick the can or anything, but that would be another great way of doing it. We do hydro to hydro from geothermal to hydronic heating, hydro, same thing, and then use that same geothermal to do cooling. So hydro to hydro is absolutely something that's been going around for forever and is very efficient. So there's no reason why something like that wouldn't work.
For sure. Awesome. So our next question is, Phil, have you done a retrofit of existing buildings for BTC mining integration? I think you kind of already alluded to this in the conversation, but go ahead and just expand upon it.
Yeah, so we have not done a retrofit for a BTC specifically. We've been doing just new constructions. We've done plenty of renovations for other things that have kind of been required of that. We have done retrofits of data centers. They weren't BTCs. So again, the retrofit piece of it isn't the biggest deal. It's just those bullet points that I hit. That's what matters the most. The size that you need, the insulation about, what the cost of the power is, all that. Everything else on a retrofit is, as long as the box is big enough, we can turn it into whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, building a data center is not very much different than building a Bitcoin mining facility.
Yeah. I mean, it really, all it comes down to is, the density of what you're doing and kind of the air conditioning and what you're handling. Like I said, there's going to be a whole lot of people, a lot smarter of those 200 and however many people are a lot smarter than me on the mining and that kind of stuff. But for us, construction's construction. There's a few nuances that are very important to Bitcoin mining, for sure. But a lot of what's the most important to you is the same thing for everyone building anything, as far as what you need to decide and what you need to do.
Absolutely. There's always, like you said, there's always somebody who's smarter, who's, comes from a different world, a different background, different education. But that's kind of why we bring this community together, is because, people like yourself, you are an expert in construction. So we bring you here to explain how that works. And, maybe we can get somebody in to talk more in depth on the different styles and whatnot, but it's just all part of it, bringing the community together. So our next question.
I saw Jordan's, sorry, real quick. I saw Jordan's pop up. Jordan, if there is a noise ordinance and there are no specs and no requirements, they can't do that. There has to be something, because otherwise you have no idea what you have to do. And so if you have an existing facility, again, the big things you want to look at is if you have air conditioning equipment that's outside your building, you're going to have to work on suppressing. You might have to suppress that. Usually it's the compressors that will need some blankets or doing those kind of things. And but if it's just fan noise, then you'd probably have to look at adding attenuators on that it's going to absorb that. And then, like I said, adding the insulation. But what you have to know is what your requirement is. Generally, what the ordinance should be is at 50 feet or 80 feet or whatever that is from the building or at the property line. Generally, it's either or. The decibels can't be more than, say, 85 or 95 or whatever that dB rating is. And then what we do is we get a sound engineer that will model what you have, and then we'll figure out how in depth we have to go to get you to that. So, they can pass an ordinance, but if they don't give you a requirement, there's no way to hold you accountable to it. So, I wouldn't worry too much until they came out with what that requirement really is.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Phil. So our next question is from Gordon again. Phil, how fast could you integrate 100 megawatts into a retrofit building next to a solar plus battery storage directly powered facility to achieve the lowest cost of power and the fastest construction possible?
So if you already have 100 megawatt, a little bit of it will depend on what your interconnect is, or if you're behind the meter or in front of the meter, because some of that would come down to the utility company being okay with that. It was, I apologize, the name's escaping me, but earlier this week, there was a lawsuit that was Constellation, I think it was, where they wanted to basically do that. They were going to have the miners behind, on the site of the power plant, and basically it wouldn't go into the grid. And so they would have basically the fees and stuff that usually come with the interconnect would be gone. And it was found that it was actually not truly behind the meter. It was still in front of the meter, so they couldn't do that. So that's one of the things you'd want to look at. But as far as time-wise, it wouldn't be that, again, depending upon the interconnect, but the building wouldn't take you're probably only a few months from transferring it all over and getting everything set up. As long as your power, was equal to what you wanted to have, and you didn't have to bring more transformers and stuff in. You've just got to look at what kind of HVAC system you're trying to add. As long as it's not anything crazy with long lead times, a few months should probably be all you need. Maybe a month or two in the design phase and the permitting phase, but the construction would be only a few months.
Awesome. So our next question comes from Dennis. Is there any states that you will not work in for sure?
Let's see. There's a lot of people on here, so I don't know whose state I want to offend or not offend. No, we are licensed all around the U.S. We'll work everywhere. Louisiana can be tough. New York City, we work a lot in upstate New York City, New Jersey, in Newark. Basically, Louisiana and other mafia controlled areas can sometimes be harder to get into. But I like to tease Louisiana because we're from Texas. So, but no, there's nowhere. California, we work there all the time. It is a pain to work there. I've put in bike racks on solar farm O&Ms that were 2 hours away from the closest any other building. But because of because of California laws, I had to put bike racks on and some of the kind of things that were just like, this is dumb. So every state's different. Every state has its own idiosyncrasies, but at the end, you can get through them all.
Awesome. Yeah. There's definitely different things to consider, power prices, temperature ranges, environment studies, all that good stuff. But from your side of things, it sounds like you can build pretty much anywhere in the United States.
Yeah. We originally started up north. So, I mean, during the oil and gas boom of, 2010 to 2014, we're up in Williston, North Dakota, working in negative 44 degrees and, got used to that cold. And thankfully we've come down to the heat. But yeah, so whether it's hot or cold or whatever, we're good.
Yeah. Definitely. I stay away from the heat, man. Yeah. All right. So our next question, what on your opinion are the best states for Bitcoin data centers, and what are the least compatible states?
So for sure, Texas has been phenomenal, and there's phenomenal growth in Texas. One, because the restrictions they pride themselves in being very business friendly. There's not a lot of permitting restrictions that are to come in. Texas is also unique because it's on its own power grid. You can be a miner up in North Texas, but buy a renewable energy contract for a solar farm that's down in Brownsville, Texas, and that's fine. Like you can go on your website and be, I'm 100% renewable power, even though you're nowhere near where that 100% renewable power is. So there's some unique things that a lot of people are taking advantage of in Texas. Obviously, Virginia has been for the last 70 years the main data center hub, and because of that is still doing very well in a lot of these kind of things. Illinois, or I think Ohio is starting to do some good things. For again, it's just the land and the power being cheap, so your ROI works is the biggest thing, as long as there's not restrictions.
Yeah, I spoke with a gentleman, Jonathan, a couple days ago on the podcast, and Philadelphia and Ohio and Texas are like three of the top states to build a Bitcoin mining facility just because of regulations and power consumption and the deregulated markets. So there's a lot of factors to take in, but those are some states that people will want to look into.
Yeah, I thought Idaho would be growing a little more because they have hydro, in Wyoming because they have a lot of hydropower, so it's relatively inexpensive power. But there's enough Californians have moved up there that there's also a lot of restrictions and pushback against it. So it is interesting kind of see what makes sense and what doesn't.
Yeah, you got to find the right dichotomy between regulations and like ability to build, I guess.
Yeah.
So, all right. So our next question comes from Dennis again. Do you have a ballpark figure for a 10 megawatt site, air cooled, containerized to turnkey? I guess he's just kind of asking like what you would charge to build that and get it completely ready for him to move in.
I do not, because a containerized would be constructed, generally containerized. You're buying from somewhere, the U.S., China, somewhere, and it's all of your stuff's already in and there, and then so. I don't have a number for that. So I apologize for that. If it was a 10 megawatt new construction build, you're probably looking in the couple million with their, and again, their cool just depends on what you're trying to do. Are we just doing 80, keeping it at 95 degrees and cooler, or is it keeping it at 75 degrees or cooler? Because that changes up your load of your HVAC. But yeah, you're looking closer to a couple $1 million widget than you are a $10 million widget or a $200,000 widget. So I'm guessing the container is probably ballpark in the million for a 10, maybe even less than that.
For sure. Awesome. Thank you for that. So our next question comes from Obama Self on YouTube. With the noise reduction, what kind of materials do I need despite wool to reduce the noise in a brick wall warehouse? Not sure if you can answer that or not.
So again, that's going to be a great start. Doing a 4 or an 8 inch thick wool insulation. Typically you'll see either banding or chicken wire that helps just kind of keep it structurally okay. And then again, and that's not the 100%. This is always the solution, because it's not just about how loud something is. It's also what pitch it is. Higher and lower pitches get absorbed differently, and so sometimes need a different material. So you may just use more standard insulation. So it all that depends on what it is. But again, on the equipment, it depends on what's making your noise. If it's just your mining, your miners and those kind of things, then it's just about getting insulation in there to absorb. If the noise is coming from your cooling equipment, again, you need to address it at the compressor or at the equipment piece.
For sure. Yeah. Real quick, have you looked into the new mining solution, containerized solution from Greenwich, the ones that like shoot the air up and out the tops?
So I have seen those. And again, as long as they are all together, that's probably great. But if they're still separated in line, although it's better than the side discharge or down discharge, depending on if you have a hard westerly wind coming across on that heat to the next one, it is better than on the side for sure.
For sure. Awesome.
But I'd say probably just a little bit less than a single building. But yeah, it's not bad. I haven't not looked into it, but that that just the physics of it would make more sense.
Right. From what I understand, just like sending the air up and out versus, through side to side, it sends the noise up, which makes it easier to kind of dissipate that sound. But I'm no engineer.
Again, the noise ordinance, it's just like everything. If you're cooling a certain large warehouse, I don't have to cool the whole warehouse. I just have to cool the warehouse to the level it needs to be. Above it, I don't care, because heat rises. That's fine. I'll keep my cool air at the 15 feet where my mining stuff is. I don't need to worry about that other 25 feet. Same with noise. They're not measuring it at 40 feet above, unless your neighbor's in a high-rise building or something. They're going to measure at ground level at your property line.
Makes sense.
Set stuff up, it's better.
All right, cool. So our next question comes from Gordon again. Phil, interconnection is secondary because it is the BTM and off-grid to start with ASAP. The interconnection is pending and will serve as backup only. So this is kind of like in line with this last question.
Yeah. So again, it shouldn't be bad to get one up and running if you got an existing facility, building there. As long as that building has the transformers and to be able to take the 100 megawatts worth of power, it shouldn't be bad. If you have to get new transformers, that would be a little delay. But yeah, I mean, that's great. It sounds like a great situation.
Awesome. So our next question comes from Gordon again. Phil, have you looked into states like Iowa and Missouri with additional tax incentives and streamlined permitting processes for faster start of construction? I
have not. But that sounds great. Again, that's the kind of stuff we would assume you'd probably be doing. All of that. We're not here to design your ROI or your tax base and all that kind of stuff. But if you find that there are good states with that and that their permitting is going to be streamlined, we can absolutely work with those states. We've done work in Iowa and in Missouri. Both states have been pretty great to work with, actually. So I would not be surprised if those are great states to build it. If the power costs and the property costs and permitting is in good shape.
Yeah. So do your due diligence before you come to Phil, basically.
We'll try and help you do that due diligence if you need to. But yeah, no, I'm not getting into each state's tax benefits or not. There's too many of them and too many different things we're looking at. But that sounds good.
Absolutely. So our last question is one that kind of, I think it alludes to like what you were talking about before. But what states are there 600 megawatt projects going up in?
Multiple. There's probably dozens of them in Texas. I can think of 1, 2, a lot. Tesla here at their Austin facility, their gigawatt facility here in Austin just finished a 50 meg data center in 6 months on their site. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's a number of them up in Canada. I'm sure there's some in Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. So there, dozens may be too many, but there's at least 10 in the U.S. in Texas that I know of. So I know Texas for sure has quite a few. I can think of 1 or 2 up in the Midwest as well.
For sure. We do have another question coming in, guys. We have some time for a couple more questions. If you want to get them in real fast, we'll do probably about 2 more if you guys get them in. So this one comes from Ivan, and Ivan asks, Phil, what's miner started a 100 kilowatt solar mining project? What are your opinions on that regarding solar plus battery off-grid mining?
So obviously this is great because we're not, one of the biggest pushes back against us as a mining community is, we're taking the power away. We don't have enough power and that kind of stuff. So if you can be completely off grid and do that, also as mining versus AI or a cloud storage, if the solar was bad and your batteries ran out, the only thing you're out is you're not mining. You're not killing your customers or any of that kind of thing. I still wish battery backup for solar was better. We still have a long ways to go on battery backup. That's why hydrogen storage, and some of these other kind of optional things are still being worked on to try and give us more of that. But over the last, I'd say 4 years, the battery storage, the BESS. So you'll see called BESS, BESS. You'll see that growth has been happening quite a bit. I love the idea. It'd be great if we could run all of the mining off various renewable sources, so that it's not a grid issue. The other thing is, I didn't bring this up, but as you're talking to the local community and that kind of stuff, then like, oh, you're using power. We are not cloud storage. We are not AI. We are as Bitcoin miners. We're actually a huge benefit to the grid. A lot of the stuff going on in Texas, they shut it down when the grid starts getting taxed. And the reason that power is even there is because of the data center. So they added, a gigawatt worth of power because of data centers that can now be used to help heat homes for grandmas in Dallas when it's necessary. That's because of your community. So don't be afraid to make sure to point that out to people that, Bitcoin mining is not the evil that sometimes we're portrayed at. We're actually really helping try and get the grid into a much better situation, because we can shut down for a couple of hours and make more money from the power companies by being off the grid, getting paid to shut it down and allow more power to help everyone else. So, but yeah, no, if you can get a solar 100 off grid, get battery storage, you'll need quite a bit of battery storage to keep up with that. But love the idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea to do it. Well, that's it for all of our questions. I'm going to bring up John Taylor because he's got something to tell the audience real quickly. But Phil, I just want to say thank you so much for, providing all that information to our community. Really appreciate your time today.
Sounds great. Appreciate it, Trevor.
Real quick, where can people get a hold of you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, so MBA-NRG.com is our website. My email again was pgarner@mbaenergy.com, and then or hit up Brandon on Telegram at bslater, B as in boy, Slater 29. If you need anything, please hit us up. We're here to help. And then we will be in Vegas next year at the convention again, and we'll try and be sober enough to answer your questions at least a few hours a day. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil. All right, Scott or John, take it away, man. Whichever one you are.
Either one. That's cool. All right. So we have we've teamed up with W3CB, the Web3 Certification Board, and the Blockchain Academy to create a Bitcoin mining boot camp. So if you're thinking about starting a Bitcoin mine, or if you are thinking about optimizing or scaling your Bitcoin mine, this is a once in a 2024 opportunity here to get into a training. It's in person for 2 days on the 16th and 17th, and then there's some prerequisites that are going to happen beforehand. It is, you get a free S19 miner to rip apart. You get some headphones to go with it, and you get the book, which is the Ultimate Bitcoin Mining Handbook. And the authors of that book are the ones who teach the course. The great thing about this course is that when you have the hours in, this will count towards your Bitcoin mining certification, which is coming out in 2025. You're going to learn the fundamentals of Bitcoin mining, the technical aspects of the mining operation, the environmental impact and sustainability of mining, the economics and investments in getting into this type of business. And then what's really important, and we've added this to all of our training sessions, is the daily operations of your Bitcoin mine. What does it look like? And I think that training is so important because it really gets you into the mindset of what is it going to look like if I do own a mine? How's my life going to be different? What kind of work do I do? It's not just a loud box with a bunch of heat and fans. There is more to it. So there's a lot of great information. And, Trevor, you do such great work. I know that we're going to be talking about mining pools here on December 6th. And then we have some other masterminds coming up, and all of these will help you build and optimize your mine, and more so, get into the business. My last little plug: if you're not in the business now, just think, what I want to have started 4 years ago or 5 years ago? And the answer is yes, 100%. And so I know 100%, 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to say, God, I was going to get in at the all-time high, but I didn't. So you got to get into it. And I really loved Phil's story because it was inspiration about, you don't have to be the biggest and the tallest. You don't have to have all the tools. You don't know you don't have to know how to do everything. And you especially don't know how to know how to talk, which is something I don't know how to do today. But we're getting through it.
You're doing a great job,
Just
John.
starting and getting into the Bitcoin mining business. And
yeah, you know, the best time to get started was yesterday, and the second best time to get started is today. And you won't regret your decision if you just, you know, dip your feet in the water, whether it's, you know, slightly or you just dive first head on. You know, we have plenty of great opportunities for people to do that. And I think that, you know, aside from our masterminds that we're doing, we've got some deep dives coming up. This boot camp coming up in December is a great opportunity, especially because you get to walk away with a miner to play with and to tinker with. I think that's a great opportunity for a lot of people.
yeah, and when we do these boot camps, you've been involved in a number of them too. You know, there's a lot of people who we call back 3 months, 6 months, 12 months later, 2 years later, and we say, "What are you doing? How's your mind going?" And they say, I haven't started. You know, the prices were too high, the prices were too low, the price, you know, something like this. And you talk to those people who didn't start 2 years ago, and I say, do you regret not starting 2 years ago? And the resounding answer is yes. I should have started, especially today when we're looking at 89,678, according to my ticker of what a Bitcoin is worth. So get involved. You know, if you're sitting on the fence, keep coming back to the masterminds. Get in touch with myself, Scott, Trevor, JJ, the whole team. We'd love to help you get you started on your mine or optimize your existing operation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John, for all that information. I just want to let everybody know, you know, we did, John alluded to it a little bit before, but the next deep dive that we will be doing is on pool profits and maximizing your operation. Just so everybody is aware, you know, we've got the North American Blockchain Summit coming up next week. So we will not be doing a mastermind accountability session. And then the week after that is Thanksgiving. So we're not going to be doing anything that day either. We're going to let everybody just kind of chill, hang out with their families, because that's what's most important. So the next time you will see us is on December 6th. So go to the link on your screen right now to sign up for that deep dive webinar and find out more. On December 13th, I believe, we are doing a deep dive on, you know, insurance, building out that plan, idea, building out a good insurance strategy around your Bitcoin mining operation. And then in January, I've got something fun planned for all the plebs out there who want to learn about home heat and stuff like that. We might just be doing a giveaway, so keep your ears tuned to that as well. But you know, that is it from us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have 244 people tuning in live today. So that's, you know, big numbers for us. Super appreciative of everyone who joined. And I'm super appreciative of you, John, and you, Scott. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for joining us in the MasterMined Club, your ultimate gateway into the world of Bitcoin mining. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale your operations, our vibrant community of like-minded enthusiasts is here to support you every step of the way. Join us next week where you'll exchange ideas, brainstorm strategies, and stay motivated on your mining journey. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next week.
Awesome. Good